If a single fire can render a $13 billion aircraft carrier completely incapacitated for 14 months, what exactly did it burn? The equipment, or the entire operational logic of the U.S. military? On March 12, 2026, while the U.S. Navy's aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford was conducting Operation Epic Fury in the Red Sea, a fire broke out in a dryer in the main laundry room. The fire spread rapidly through the ventilation ducts and burned for over 30 hours before it was fully contained. While the fire did not trigger an explosion or directly damage the propulsion system, its destructive power far exceeded what was immediately apparent. The living quarters of more than 600 crew members were completely destroyed by smoke and heat, forcing them to seek temporary shelter at long tables in the mess hall, on the hangar deck, and on the open deck. More than 200 people underwent medical evaluations for toxic smoke inhalation, and one was evacuated by helicopter due to severe lung damage. U.S. Navy officials described the fire as non-combat related and emphasized that the carrier's propulsion system remained intact, but these statements masked a deeper systemic crisis. Following the fire, the USS Ford immediately terminated its operational deployment in the Middle East and arrived at the Souda Bay Naval Base on the Greek island of Crete on March 23. Unlike previous port calls, where crew members were allowed to rotate ashore for rest and recreation, the U.S. military issued a strict order this time. No crew members were permitted to leave the ship in groups, and individual shore leave was also strictly controlled. The Naval Criminal Investigative Service immediately boarded the ship to conduct a criminal-level investigation into personnel movements, equipment operation logs, and cabin surveillance footage in the area where the fire occurred. The investigation focused on 20 crew members who had been on duty in the laundry room or had exhibited unusual behavior recently. This series of extraordinary measures suggests that the military already strongly suspects the possibility of arson rather than a simple equipment malfunction. According to assessments by U.S. defense analysis agencies and several major media outlets, the USS Ford is expected to return to the Norfolk Naval Shipyard in the U.S. around May 2026 for a comprehensive overhaul lasting approximately 14 months. This is not a routine maintenance, but a systematic overhaul. The cable networks, control units, and power conversion modules of the electromagnetic catapult system and advanced arresting gear face large-scale replacement due to corrosion caused by high temperatures and smoke. These systems consist of thousands of custom cables and optical fibers. Every connection point must be ray-soldered and calibrated in a dust-free environment, and the production cycle for spare parts can take several months. The HSL, a 115 high-strength steel on the flight deck, has undergone microstructural changes due to prolonged exposure to high temperatures, resulting in a decline in strength. Each section must be inspected individually via non-destructive testing. Areas that fail to meet performance standards will be cut out and replaced. This process requires dismantling the deck structure and is extremely time-consuming. Electronic components in the ship's dual-frequency radar, communication relay, and navigation systems, even if not destroyed by open flames, have suffered chemical corrosion due to acidic smoke and residual firefighting foam, causing circuit board failures. Original manufacturer spare parts for these devices are in extremely short supply, and with highly centralized production processes, supply chain recovery is slow. More critically, to provide emergency repairs to the crew's living quarters, the U.S. Navy has removed 1,000 mattresses and 2,000 sets of uniforms from the second ship, the USS John F. Kennedy, which has not yet entered service. This has directly slowed the outfitting progress of the new vessel. The prolonged out-of-service status of the USS Ford has left the U.S. Navy with only the USS Abraham Lincoln to maintain a presence in the Red Sea and the Middle East, creating a power vacuum that has persisted for at least 14 months. This gap has impacted efforts to suppress the Houthi rebels, deter Iran, and maintain rapid response capabilities for allies. The Pentagon was forced to make temporary adjustments to deployments, extending the rotation cycles of other vessels, which exacerbated crew fatigue and equipment wear and tear. The USS Ford's predicament is not the result of a single incident, but rather a concentrated outbreak of long-term overdeployment, uncontrolled technical complexity, and insufficient logistical and maintenance capabilities. Since setting sail in June 2025, the ship has been deployed continuously for over 270 days, far exceeding the standard cycle of 6 to 7 months. During this period, the ship's 650 vacuum sewage treatment systems repeatedly clogged, with maintenance personnel working nearly 20 hours a day, causing a mounting backlog of maintenance work. The fire was merely the final straw that broke the camel's back. When the daily operations of an aircraft carrier rely on constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul, its advanced technology becomes synonymous with fragility. A report released by the U.S. Congressional Research Service in August 2024 noted that the USS Ford's advanced arresting gear achieved a mean time between failures of only 41 out of 8,157 aircraft recoveries, far short of the design requirement of 16,500. This implies that a system malfunction could occur in approximately 1 out of every 2 recoveries. The electromagnetic catapult system also fell short of expectations, with its mean time between failures falling far below the design target. These figures are not based on media speculation, but on official assessments by Department of Defense testing agencies. A Bloomberg report dated March 25, 2026, further confirmed that the ship had already been suffering from a severe shortage of berths prior to the fire. The per-crew member living space was below the Navy's minimum standard, with some personnel forced to sleep in the hangar or corridors for extended periods, leading to mounting psychological stress. After the fire, crew members were prohibited from leaving the ship in groups, and a psychological support team was temporarily deployed. However, due to a lack of private counseling spaces, they could only provide limited services via telephone. The frequency of attacks by Houthi militants did not decrease in the first quarter of 2026. A resolution passed by the UN Security Council in July 2025, calling for continued monitoring of shipping safety in the Red Sea, indicates that attacks are still ongoing. From January to March 2026, the group launched at least 17 drone and missile attacks, targeting both merchant ships and U.S. Navy escort vessels. The absence of the USS Ford has not diminished its operational capabilities, rather, it has increased the U.S. military's interception costs, forced the escort task force to disperse, and reduced defensive efficiency. During the repair period, the USS Ford's crew will be dispersed to multiple naval bases across the U.S. mainland. Some personnel will be reassigned to other aircraft carrier strike groups, while others will be placed on standby. The Navy has launched a crew stabilization program to provide temporary housing subsidies and family support services, but has not disclosed the specific duration of psychological interventions or rehabilitation assessment criteria. The future of this aircraft carrier hinges on whether it can truly regain operational capability in 14 months or become a symbol of the next technological bubble. Meanwhile, the ship's carrier Air Wing 8 has fully suspended combat operations. All aircraft have been transferred to Oceana Naval Air Station in Virginia for temporary training, while some pilots have been reassigned to the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group for rotation duties. This adjustment has compressed the Air Wing's joint training cycle and reduced its combat readiness. War risk insurance premiums for merchant ships in the Red Sea have surged again following the USS Ford's withdrawal. According to Lloyd's data, in March 2026, war risk premiums for a single voyage by an oil tanker soared from $625,000 before the conflict to $7.5 million, a more than tenfold increase. Several international insurers have suspended coverage for Red Sea routes, forcing shipping companies to reroute via the Cape of Good Hope, adding 3,500 nautical miles to the one-way journey and extending transit times by 10 to 14 days. The U.S. Navy had hoped that the Constellation-class frigates would fill the carrier gap, but the program's subsequent construction plans were officially cancelled in November 2025. The delivery of the lead ship, the USS Constellation, has been postponed from 2026 to 2029, and its unit cost has risen from $1 billion to over $1.5 billion. The ship is incapable of performing carrier-level air defense, anti-submarine, and strike missions, and its existence cannot fill the strategic void. In 2026, the Norfolk Naval Shipyard will simultaneously be handling the midlife overhaul of the USS Eisenhower, the nuclear refueling of the USS Stanislaus, and the modernization upgrades of multiple Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. Maintenance resources are already fully saturated, and the 14-month maintenance cycle for the USS Ford represents the absolute limit of the U.S. shipbuilding industry's current capacity. When every takeoff and landing on an aircraft carrier becomes an amplifier of systemic risks, and when its existence no longer symbolizes power, but becomes a monument to fiscal and technical debt, its decommissioning is no longer a random event, but an inevitable footnote to systemic decline.